Hi everyone, really good to see you. Welcome to Edmund Church. As Derek said, my name is Esther. I'm part of the leadership team here. And to be honest, I am so relieved it's not 27 or 37 degrees right now. All this week I'll be thinking, what am I going to wear? How am I going to do this without, Anyway, but thank you God for a little bit of coolness today. Today is week 3 in our Sunday teaching series that we're in at the moment, called A People of Presence. Derek and Sarah have given us a cracking, I have to say, first couple of talks so far. Really challenging in good ways. If you missed out or you want to have another listen, as always you can catch up on all of our Sunday and Thursday talks online. And we're using Exodus 33 verse 15. This is our starting point across this whole teaching series. And it's Moses having a conversation with God, and it says, "Then Moses said to God, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here." So this is kind of running through our whole teaching series. And I think if we want to be more than nice people, if we want to be pointing other people to Jesus and his life-changing love, we need God's real and tangible presence with us. We know we can't do this on our own. We need to be filled up, on fire, oozing God's presence in our whole lives. And then all kinds of fun stuff is possible. Today we're in Judges, and the book of Judges is in the Bible, possibly written by Samuel. It's in the Old Testament part of the Bible, and it spans a period of over 325 years and details the varied careers of 12 judges. Not judges with wigs and gowns, rushing between courtrooms and flashy law firms. Like, these judges were appointed by God to oversee the Israelites, to dispense wisdom and attempt to keep the community on God's track. And theologian Amy Orr Ewing, she describes Judges as a book of gore and war. I like that. It's the kind of thing I wish I could have come up with. But if you have a flick through the pages of the book of Judges, it will confirm that this is a pretty accurate description. And so when we get to the book of Judges in our Bibles, we've had Moses, and Moses has led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. Joshua, his successor, has then led the Israelites into the land God promised they would settle. And Joshua has died, and well, it's all got a little bit messy. In chapter 2 of Judges, verse 10, we read, "Another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel." And the last words of the book of Judges in chapter 21, verse 25 says this: "In those days Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit." Pretty bleak, isn't it? And in between that, throughout the book of Judges, we see this cycle on repeat. So the people turned away from God, their land is invaded, the people cry out to God, God appoints a judge to save the Israelites, and there is peace until that judge dies. Then the people turn away from God, their land is invaded, the people cry out, God appoints a judge to save the Israelites, there's peace until that judge dies, and literally on repeat, round and round that cycle. So that is a brief kind of overview of the book of Judges, and we're going to be reading from Judges chapter 4 today, and we're taking on this question: are we listening to and obeying God? And we're going to be getting to know judge number 4, who is called Deborah. And I have to say, I am a big fan of Deborah. Well, I am now. Before preparing this, I honestly knew very little about this woman, which is a shame because she's awesome. So before we read our verses, let's get to know Deborah a little bit. So her name in Hebrew means word and breath of the Spirit. That's quite a cool name, isn't it? She was around 1,200 years before Jesus lived on earth, where you can find her under a palm tree or on the battlefield. What did she get up to? Being a prophet, a wife, a leader, judge, a warrior. What's she like? Wise, courageous, gracious, and a fighter for peace. Other information, she loved a song, which is in chapter 5, which we're not covering today, but do have a read of that. I'm really happy with these pictures, by the way. I don't know, I wish I could remember where I got them from online. But a really cool animated version of the story of Deborah, which for me, like, I need to kind of see stuff visually to get into it. So I'd recommend it online, but I can't remember where it is. But if you want to know, we'll find out. Anyway, other main characters in the story that we're going to be reading today, we have Sisera. Boo, he's a bad guy. And we have 900 chariots, which is bad news for anyone Sisera was fighting against. Then we have Barak. He was commissioned by Deborah to fight said bad guy, Sisera. And then we have Jael. I mean, I wish we could do a whole talk on her, to be honest. The woman who fulfilled Deborah's prophetic word and killed Sisera. So, little bit of an overview. Let's have a read. You can find Judges in your Bible. It's kind of near the start, but a few books on. Is that helpful? If you haven't got a Bible with you, there are some at the back. Please do go and help yourself. If you've got one on your phone, that's great. Otherwise, follow along on the wall behind me. So, we're going to start with chapter 4, verses 1 to 10. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, now that Ehud, previous judge, was dead. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. Sisera, the commander of his army, was based in Harosheth Hagoyim. Because he had 900 chariots fitted with iron and cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years, they cried to the Lord for help. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go, take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor. I will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and troops to the river Kishon, and give him into your hands." Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go." "Certainly, I will go with you," said Deborah, "but because of the course you are taking, the honour will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. There Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went up under his command. Deborah also went up with him. Then we're just going to jump to verses 14 to 15. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands. Has not the Lord gone ahead of you?" So Barak went down Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. At Barak's advance, the Lord routed Sisera and all his chariots and army by the sword. And Sisera got down from his chariot and fled on foot. Verse 21. We're reading this because it's the fulfillment of Deborah's words from God in verse 9. But Jael, Heber's wife picked up a tent peg and a hammer and went quietly to him, Sisera, while he lay fast asleep, exhausted. She drove the peg through his temple into the ground, and he died. So much that I could say on that verse, but that's not the point of today. Another time, Steve, let's do that. So to start with today, we're going to use these verses to see what we can learn when it comes to listening to God, when life is messy and complicated, and all the time. And then we're going to have a little look at the small matter of obeying, what that might look like. So, listening to God when life is messy and complicated. Sometimes I think when we think about people in the Bible, we think that they lived in very different times to us. Like they did, literally, of course. But what I mean is we think that people in the Bible had access to a very different relationship with God, that all they were doing was listening to God, and that hearing God was easier somehow. It wasn't easier. Like verses 2 to 3 tell us that the Israelites were being brutally oppressed by an opposing kingdom, and were 20 years into Sisera flexing his 900-strong iron chariot muscle. And I don't know about you, but it can be so hard to even want to try to listen to God when life is tough. And we're not told what it looked like when Deborah heard God ask her to become the next judge of Israel. Like, was she sitting in bed, having her morning quiet time? Was she eating dinner with her husband? Was she worriedly waiting for news of Sisera's latest show of force? Like, we don't know. But we do know that life was pretty bleak and had been for a long time. We know that God had been rejected, and the community that Deborah was in, they were embracing all kinds of other gods. And we also know that Deborah is living in a culture where men held pretty much every position of power. Like, this is Deborah's real life. And still, in amongst this, she hears God's invitation. Now, I think she could quite understandably have been so consumed with the worries of life to not even hear God. She could have brushed off God's invitation because she'd never seen a woman judge Israel before. She could have discounted herself, assumed that I just didn't hear that right, without a second thought. But she didn't. In amongst all of that stuff going on, Deborah listened and she said yes. And I think this raises some good challenges and questions for us. Like, for us, how do we work out, like, actually, not just in theory, how to listen to God when life is tough? When it's difficult to even believe that God exists? Like, are there times when God speaks to us, invites us into something a little unexpected and maybe out there, but we don't hear because we've already counted ourselves out of God wanting to do stuff with us? And I don't have answers, but I do think that we need to be intentional in how we spend time with God, and sometimes this is painful. And sometimes we choose to spend time with God, and we do that through gritted teeth. I've had times when life has been hard where I just don't even want to look at God. And I can remember really clearly and specifically a time when my health was really bad. I was praying, other people were praying, nothing was happening. And I remember forcing myself to open my Bible app each morning when I woke up and to read the verse for the day. And that was like, I know God is there. I can't see him. I'm not hearing from God right now, but I'm going to do this because I want to keep some kind of connection and opportunity for God to show up, basically. And like in that moment at that time, like that was all I could do. And I told God, as you can imagine, God, this is it. This is all I can do right now. And there wasn't a blinding light, amazing moment where everything changed. But I'm still here today, so something did. Like sometimes we choose to listen out for God in amongst the difficult stuff of life with gritted teeth. And then there's other people. Other people are so important for us. I'd love to know the role that Deborah's husband played in her hearing and responding to God. I reckon he encouraged her. He told her to go for it. He listed why he thought she would be perfect for this role, and that he kept pointing her back to God's invitation when the whole judging of Israel got tough. We need solid people around us as we do life and as we listen to God. We need encouraging. We need challenging. We need other people around us to regularly remind us of who we are and the awesomeness of God with us. Be brave. Have a little look around you. Go on, right now. Move your head just like a little bit. Yeah. Oh, I'm so proud of you all. Didn't think you would do that. Have a look around you because we need each other. We do this together, and I feel like I say that from the front a lot, but we do. We need each other. Other people are so important for us as we listen to God and respond to God. And so, listening to God all the time. So Deborah listening to God, it wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't like, oh, I've heard God speak to me, ask me to become judge of Israel, job done, just going to get on with it now. Like, listening to God was, and is, an all-day, everyday kind of thing. And I don't know about you. It can be easy for us to focus on like wanting to hear from God for a specific situation we're in. Literally just had this conversation with James about something going on in my life before we started this morning. Like there's a situation I'm like, God, like tell me what to do about this. Should I do this or should I do that? And we can become so focused on that one thing, which isn't a bad thing, and we should be asking God all those questions, but we forget that God wants to be chatting with us about anything and everything in all the day-to-day stuff of our lives. And we see in verse 5, Deborah going about her day job, settling disputes and being wise. She's listening to God as she sorts out who owns that flock of sheep, where they should graze, where the lambs go. I assume that's the kind of thing she was working out, I don't know. But in amongst all of the stuff of her day-to-day job and life, she's open to God, listening for God to speak to her about other things. And I think this is another good challenge for us, because Deborah hasn't got comfortable or complacent sat under her palm tree. Like, she's ready to be interrupted by God. She's ready for the unexpected. And it feels to me like Deborah does and is doing life with this continuously open-handed posture towards God. Like, she's doing the job that God has asked her to do, and at the same time she's like, I'm listening. What are you saying? And I really like that. Like, I want to be more open-handed as I do the stuff of life in my posture towards God. I want that for all of us too. So as she's doing this, Deborah responds to God and she sends for Barak and delivers some huge words. Like, let's not underestimate how huge these words are, because they're words that promise freedom again from Israel, for Israel, to break them out of that cycle. And verses 6 to 7, it says, Deborah is saying, the Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun and lead them to Mount Tabor. That's God, will lead Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and troops to the river Kishon and give him into your hands. Great. Perfect. Like, that's all good. Easy peasy. Go get it done, Barak. God's speaking to you. But today, we're not just thinking about listening to God. We are thinking about listening and obeying. In some ways, listening on its own is pretty useless. Go with me. It's like if you read part 1 of a story, but you ignore that there's a part 2 out there. Like, you can read part 1 or listen to it, watch it, and it's okay. Like, it exists on its own, but if you add part 2, you get the bigger picture. You get the depth of a whole story, and everything just makes a lot more sense. And sometimes when we think about listening to God, we can see it as passive. It's something that happens to us, and that we just need to sit really still and really quietly and wait. I think that listening and action go hand in hand, because listening to God, hearing God speak, it's always going to provoke and demand some kind of response from us. There's always some kind of response. So let's have a look at Barak. Barak is a military commander. He's in a position of authority over an army that has been taking a beating for 20 years. Like, let's keep that in mind. That is a long time. So Barak gets summoned to Deborah's palm tree, told that God is going to use him to lead soldiers into a battle against the mighty Sisera and his 100 chariots, and that it's already been won. Like, this has got to be what Barak's been waiting for, right? He gets to be the hero. Out of nowhere, freedom and peace for Israel is on the horizon. Verse 8 says, Barak said to her, if you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go. This is an interesting echo of our Exodus 33 verse. If you could just pop that up, Luke. Thank you. But with a request for a human presence rather than God's presence. Barak says, if you go with me, Deborah, I'll go. If you don't, I won't. And I don't want to be hard on Barak here. Like, part of me wants to shake him and go, come on, man. This is God speaking to you. What more do you want? Get on with it. And another part of me wants to put an arm around him and say, yep, I feel you, Barak. Life has been rough. It's okay. It's going to be okay. But Barak still obeys. He still goes. He just needs another human. And that's not the first or last time this happens in the Bible, by the way. I'm sure God would have loved it if Barak had said yes straight away, ran off to get his 10,000 men and without looking back. I think God still loves it that Barak goes. Maybe hesitantly, maybe doubt-filled, but he still goes. he still says yes. And what about my new favourite Bible character, Deborah? In verse 9, she responds to Barak, "Certainly I will go with you." I'd love to know her tone right now. I'm desperately trying hard not to put my tone into it. But like, this woman is epic. Like, she's ready to be interrupted, to put the familiar and comfortable to one side, and to embrace this God-breathed pivot in her life. Like, it's that open-handed posture again. So good. Like, Deborah's community have seen her bringing peace and justice on a daily basis as she sat under her palm tree as judge of Israel. Now they see her fighting for what she's known to be talking about. She leads Barak onto the battlefield, ultimately bringing peace to a nation. And she does this, she's able to step out in obedience because she's confident of God's presence with her in the right here, right now, and in whatever happens next. Like, God's presence makes anything and everything else that follows possible. Like, that is pretty good, isn't it? So, what about me and you? That's all great. It's all good listening to stories from the Bible. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But what about me and you? Where does this listening to and obeying God, where does it hit us in our real lives today? I've got some questions that I'm going to throw out there, but just want to acknowledge or say, like, this is difficult. I mean, there's this thing, like, when you do speaking in church and the subject is annoyingly relevant, it's like Steve knows. And like, as I've been preparing this week, I'm like, oh, God. Because like, I'm with a situation like, I'm like, God, I don't know what to do. What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. But it feels like, I don't know, like, I know God's there and in it, but like, just tell me something clear. And there have been other times in life where, in another situation in life, where I was like, God, what do you want me to do? Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. And then I got an email like 10 minutes later, and then I ended up in West Africa. That's another story. But like, they're the kind of, it feels like we have those kind of bigger situations in life which are really important in the listening and obeying, but there's the day-to-day stuff of life of, how am I going to get out of bed today? How am I going to hang out with my mates on a hockey pitch? How am I going to go to Lidl? How am I going to go to work? All the stuff of life. Like, how are we listening to God within that? Anyway, here's some questions for you, because I feel like we've got to kind of do our own work a little bit in this. Have a read of these, take a moment, ask God to speak. So, have we, for any reason, disqualified ourselves from God's plans? Maybe it's something to do with our background or our status or whatever, but have we disqualified ourselves from God's plans? Or have we got so comfortable that we've stopped listening or expecting God to show up? Has God said something to us that we need to get on and do something with? Is our posture towards God open-handed and interruptible? So just take a couple of minutes now. Maybe there's something within those questions that jumps out at you. If there's something that you want to skip past quickly, then maybe resist that. But yeah, take a moment and ask, like, God, what are you saying to me, to us from this? So just take a minute now.